Thursday evening arrives with the particular weight that comes from anticipation mixed with uncertainty. Aduni Bamidele sits in her husband's Mercedes, watching her driver navigate Lagos traffic while her mind races through justifications for the evening ahead. Cooking lessons, she reminds herself. She's simply continuing her education in culinary arts. The small jar of Obaro's spice blend sits in her purse, nearly empty after a week of morning additions to her tea. Each pinch had been a small rebellion, a daily reminder that she was more than just the director's wife, more than just a charity president, more than just the perfectly composed woman Lagos society expected her to be. "Madam, we don't arrive," her driver announces, pulling up to the familiar building. "You want make I wait?" "No, thank you, Samuel," she says, though her voice carries less conviction than usual. "I'll call when I'm ready." The elevator ride to Obaro's penthouse feels simultaneously too long and too short. Part of her wants more time to prepare for whatever this evening might reveal about herself. Another part wants to skip past the uncertainty and dive directly into the experience that occupied her thoughts for 6 days. Obaro greets her at the door, wearing a simple black shirt and jeans that somehow managed to look more expensive than most people's formal wear. His smile carries genuine warmth, mixed with the kind of knowing confidence that makes her forget her own carefully rehearsed composure. "Aduni," he says, kissing her cheek in greeting. "You look radiant, more relaxed than last week." She is more relaxed, though she's not entirely sure why. Perhaps it's the daily ritual of the spice blend, or perhaps it's simply the knowledge that she has a secret space where she's allowed to want what she wants without justification. "I've been thinking about last week," she admits, as they move toward the kitchen area. "About the document I signed, about the things we discussed." "And what conclusions did you reach?" Aduni accepts the glass of wine he offers, something white and crisp that tastes like it costs more than her monthly charity budget. "That I've spent 15 years being the woman everyone needed me to be. And I'm not entirely sure who I am when those expectations are removed." The honesty surprises them both. Last week's conversation had been carefully navigated around the edges of desire and propriety. Tonight feels more direct, more willing to examine uncomfortable truths. "That's why we start with food," Obaro says. Beginning to prepare, what she can see will be something more complex than last week's meal. Appetite is honest. Your body knows what it wants before your mind creates reasons to deny it. He's preparing multiple dishes simultaneously. Something with seafood, something involving plantains, and what appears to be a dessert that requires careful timing. The coordination is mesmerizing, like watching a conductor manage a complex symphony. "Tell me about your marriage," he says while working, his tone casual, but his attention clearly focused on her response. The question catches her off guard. Last week's conversation had carefully avoided discussing her husband directly, focusing instead on her own desires and boundaries. "My marriage is," she begins, then stops, realizing she's about to give the standard response she offers at social gatherings. "My marriage is successful by every measure Lagos society uses to evaluate such things. Financially stable, socially advantageous, free of public scandal." "And by measures that matter to you personally?" The question hangs in the air while Obaro continues cooking, giving her space to consider an answer she's never been asked to provide. "I love my husband," she says finally. "But I'm not sure I'm in love with him anymore. Maybe I never was. Maybe I was in love with the security he represented, the social position, the way he made my parents proud." Obaro plates the first course, some kind of seafood preparation that looks like art, and sets it before her. And now? Now I wonder what it would feel like to be with someone who saw me as more than just an accessory to their success. She takes a bite of the seafood and closes her eyes at the complexity of flavors. Someone who cared about my appetite as much as their own. The admission creates an intimacy that goes beyond physical attraction. This isn't just about the sophisticated seduction Obaro has perfected. This is about emotional territory that could fundamentally alter her understanding of what she wants from relationships. The document you signed last week, Obaro says, settling across from her with his own plea. One of the clauses addressed the possibility of developing feelings beyond physical attraction. Aduli remembers the clause, something about acknowledging that intimacy might generate emotional connections that extend beyond the agreed-upon boundaries. She'd signed it, thinking it was just legal thoroughness, not imagining it might become immediately relevant. "Are you asking if I'm developing feelings for you?" she asks, meeting his eyes directly. "I'm acknowledging that you're discovering feelings for yourself," he replies. Feelings that have been dormant or ignored for so long that they feel overwhelming now that they're awakened. The second course arrives. Perfectly prepared plantains with a sauce that somehow manages to be both familiar and exotic. As they eat, their conversation explores territory that neither expected to navigate so quickly. "What if this changes everything?" Aduni asks. "What if I can't go back to being satisfied with a marriage that meets everyone's expectations except my own?" "Then you'll have to decide what matters more," Obaro says. "The security of meeting expectations or the risk of pursuing satisfaction." The question forces her to confront choices she's been avoiding since the moment she signed her first consent document. This isn't just about Tuesday evening consultations or discreet culinary education. This is about whether she's willing to fundamentally alter her life in pursuit of authenticity. "And if I choose satisfaction?" she asks. "Then we discuss different arrangements, more frequent consultations, perhaps weekend experiences, maybe even travel to locations where discretion is easier to maintain." The possibilities he describes sound like escape routes from a life that's become increasingly constraining. But they also sound like paths that lead away from everything she's built, everything she's committed to, everything that defines her place in Lagos society. "I need to think," she says, though they both knew she's been thinking about little else for the past week. "Of course," Obaro agrees, beginning to prepare dessert, something involving chocolate and what appears to be exotic fruits. "But while you're thinking, consider this. How many years are you willing to spend being someone else's idea of perfect?" The dessert, when it arrives, is a revelation. Complex layers of flavor that somehow tell a story about desire and satisfaction, and the courage required to pursue both. As they eat, Aduni feels herself moving toward a decision that terrifies and exhilarates her in equal measure. "If I wanted more than Tuesday evenings," she says finally, "what would that look like?" Obaro sets down his fork and studies her face with the kind of attention that suggests he's seeing her clearly for the first time. "It would look like you deciding who you want to be independent of who everyone expects you to be. It would look like discovering what you're willing to risk for the chance to be genuinely satisfied." "And you, what would you be risking?" "Nothing," he says with a smile that carries both warmth and danger. "I've already arranged my life around the pursuit of authentic experiences. The question is whether you're ready to arrange yours the same way." As the evening draws to a close, Adili signs additional documents, amendments to her original agreement that acknowledge the evolving nature of their arrangement and the expanding scope of her appetite for experiences that awaken parts of herself she'd forgotten existed. Friday at 6, Obaro says as she prepares to leave. If you want to explore what satisfaction looks like when you're not watching the clock. Friday at 6, she confirms, though they both understand she's confirming more than just another appointment. After she leaves, Obaro cleans his kitchen while contemplating the realization that his consultations are becoming something more complex than he originally designed. Aduni isn't just discovering her appetite. She's discovering her courage. And courage, once awakened, has a tendency to demand increasingly substantial feeding. Somewhere across Lagos, Governor Akinwale and his wife are probably having conversations about their own expanding arrangements. Thursday, Kemi will arrive expecting increasingly sophisticated experiences. And Friday, Aduni will return ready to explore what it means to prioritize her own satisfaction over social expectations. The table is becoming more complex, the appetites more demanding, and the potential consequences more significant. But that's exactly how Obaro Hunter prefers his challenges served, with just enough danger to make the reward unforgettable.